Welcome back to The Gray Area, an informal podcast that is just a couple dudes having a conversation.
As a reminder, nothing we say is intended to offend anyone, but we do welcome your input in the comments below.
Today we're going to be discussing GMO products and whether they are ethical.
For those who do not know, GMO stands for Genetically Modified Organism.
GMOs are currently very apparent in the agricultural world as our growing population has led to a greater demand for food.
From the other side of this scientific approach, some believe that it is unethical to use science to genetically modify a living organism. Okay, so I feel like with such a greater food demand, because we have so many more people than we did, say, even 100 years ago. We have
even 50
exponentially more people. So we gotta find some way to feed them,
Exactly. The food demand is always going to be high because we're having too many babies. Well, not necessarily in the first world, but in other countries, they are having a lot of kids, and we do need to feed a lot of mouths.
Yeah, exactly. But
however, I think where people are split for this is what are the effects of the GMOs on our system? Is it making us get cancer, or are we getting more sick from these foods?
I mean, that's a fair question, and because it is such a such an obvious question that you'd want to ask, as we're starting to discover this more and more.
Yeah.
In the labs, when they're making these, when they're creating these seeds or whatever, there's no way that they haven't tested this stuff.
Of course, yeah.
Like, don't get me wrong. There's only so much testing you can do before you have to release it and then see what actually happens with people. Mm-hmm. Right now we have a bunch of people that are celiac because their human body cannot handle processed wheat and barley and basically the big agricultural things. Yeah.
Which is
wheat, barley, soy.
Gluten is everywhere.
Yeah, gluten's everywhere.
You're not going to get away from that stuff.
In the growing world. In the agricultural world, I mean. So, I think that GMOs, while it's totally possible they run the risk of having negative effects, there's no way they haven't tested them.
Of course.
There's no way.
I mean, at the same token, I know with the food industry there's a lot of wiggle room. I mean, it's pretty strict, but there is still ways you can get around, some certain laws or rules, admitted by the FDA. You can sort of push the boundaries a bit and still be fine.
Actually, the pork industry does that because highly processed meats like bacon, sausage, and ham, they are carcinogens. And the pork industry pays off the governments because they're part of the food industry.
Of course,
they feed the people, so they hold a lot of strength in regards to the government. Because if they stop making food, what are they governing?
Exactly,
the rocks. So I know that it's happened in the past where they kind of make the recommended diets that the government releases.
Yeah.
They're like, hey,
you can't.
You got to include meat on it.
I know. The milk industry too. They're just for propaganda in general.
Oh my goodness.
You get so much. At least here in Canada, I get so many ads for milk.
I know, it's like drink milk.
It's like you don't need milk.
Well, to be fair, actually, it's not necessarily that the milk industry is trying to make a whole bunch of profits.
Oh, of course.
It's that it's from America's side, they stopped buying our milk.
Exactly.
So we have too much milk.
And we need
we need to get rid of it. So that's why they're always like, oh, buy more milk. It's because we have so much here, and the dairy farmers are suffering because of the loss of income.
Yeah.
But anyways, going back to the GMOs, it's like, I know that people also have a lot of concern with relating it more to the animals that we were just talking about, with the feed that these animals are fed, because everyone's on the kick of, if an animal is not GMO fed, that makes them more natural.
It goes back to I know there was a coffee bean and you can still get it, is these cats in the wilds that go out, they would eat some specific beans, some specific coffee beans, and then they'd poop them out, and it would get rid of all the bitterness and all the, nasty thing about coffee that a lot of people hate. And it was very highly, it was in high demand because, it's awesome, right?
Yeah.
This is a rare product. We can sell it for a high price. But then it quickly became industrialized, and the quality of that coffee has gone down exponentially. And it's the same kind of deal with animals. If they're not getting fed the right things, if they're not eating properly, their meat and their whatnot is going to be lesser. So
that's fair. But
so if it's GMOs, if GMOs can exactly replicate the same, vitamin or just goodness of the product of the feed, then I don't see a big problem with that.
I would argue your original point where the animals' meat and whatever they produce is going to suffer, because on the flip side of that, if say we hadn't used the GMO, you don't know if that crop is going to die off.
That is
and
true.
then they don't have any feed.
And
which ultimately means your
meat.
Your meat supply, your milk supply, your egg supply is going to diminish anyways.
That's fair.
And it'll diminish exponentially more than if the meat tastes a little less beefy, for example, than before. So I feel like the GMOs are doing more good in that respect.
Yeah.
Than not having it.
I know it was few years ago. Well, I'm going to say few, but several years ago now, Monsanto, the big name for GMOs, at least in America and in Canada, Haiti got hit by that earthquake or tsunami or hurricane. Yeah. They got hit by something. Don't remember what it was.
It was the earthquake. It was earthquake.
And I know, so a lot of their food supply their everything got destroyed, right?
Gone.
And Monsanto decided to say, hey, they'd make a lot of GMO products, especially corn and wheat. But they're like, hey, Haitian people, we have a shit ton of corn. Do you guys want some? And I know there was a lot of strikes in Haiti to say we don't want Monsanto stuff, because they've been you go to Haiti, you go to different, Caribbean places, or just places closer to the equator, you're getting more fresh ingredients. You see, like, open markets in Haiti, there's fresh ingredients. It's all grown locally with no GMOs, and there is a big difference in the the quality of the product. And a lot of Haitians were just against that because they didn't want genetically modified stuff. It's against what they're used to in their diet.
Yeah, but at the same time, then they're starving themselves for a reason that it's like, you don't always have to take Monsanto?
It's Monsanto, yeah.
Yeah, you don't always have to take their stuff. They're
of
like,
course.
Oh, hey, your country just was literally destroyed. Let us help you. And, now the Haitian people are like, well, because it's genetically modified.
It's fake. Well, I know a lot of people had a big gripe against Monsanto I know if you had like a farm near a Monsanto farm, they could claim your crop because they got their specific genes or whatever. When the flowers bloom, it would go onto your plants, and you'd get, the GMOs or not. You'd get some sort of pesticide or whatever on your plants.
Yeah. And
then they could claim your crop, and there was a whole bunch of like unnatural things about Monsanto's products that a lot of people hated. But
but at the same time, they're producing much food for the world?
A lot of food, a lot of corn. I'd say the majority of the corn you could probably get in America, at least, is Monsanto owned.
Yeah, because they have the power to make this crop grow. There's so many things that threaten crops. Bugs,
disease,
plant-based disease, like
weeds, other plants,
yeah, or some
weather conditions.
Bill, who decided that trying to do a drift with his tractor was a good idea.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that threaten that corn.
There is indeed, yeah.
Especially those corny jokes. Oh, yeah. Anyways.
But I'm totally down. GMOs. I mean, there are getting to a point where we are cloning fruit, and we are making it so that it's basically the same exact fruit that we can grow all the time, which is great. And if we can get more food just by switching up a few things in the genetics, that is, I mean, if we're just straight up getting more food,
Yeah.
with no negative effect. That is, if there is no negative effect, right?
See, the other thing that I can see this becoming an issue with is I know that there's been a big push lately to have more bug protein based things. Now, I know that a lot of people find it gross, but I mean, you look at the statistics of it, and you collect, 60% of a cow's meat, and you can collect 90% of a cricket's meat.
Yeah.
So it's more efficient, and it costs a tenth of the water to grow the exact same amount of poundage of meat. And it's like, so I know that there's a big push for that. I know a lot of people are like, ew, bugs, it's gross, but that's just stigma.
That's just, I mean, we're in at least, Canada and America, we're grown up, we don't really eat bugs. It's not a thing. There's cultures out there that eat bugs.
I have a coworker from, what are those islands? In Indonesia? No. Indonesia?
Indonesia? Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Somewhere around, she's from somewhere around there.
There, yeah.
And they eat lots of bugs. And it's normal. Yeah. It's normal to them. And it's, I mean, I look at some of the things she shows me, she's like, man, this is so good. I'm like, that looks gross. But that's just because of the way I was raised.
Exactly.
So anyways, there's a big push for this, bug-grown, bug meat, bug flour. Cricket flour is actually apparently really tasty. Anyways, where these GMOs might counter that is because they're anti-bug, right?
Oh, okay.
Because they're modifying them because bugs are a really big threat to crops. That's like one of the bigger ones.
Yeah. And that's
besides like drought. Drought's probably the biggest. I don't know. But so when they're pushing for this anti-bug stuff, and then there's all these bug farms coming up, like, what are they going to do? I mean, I'm sure that they have crops that they feed to the bugs, but if those crops become contaminated by
a pesticide,
this GMO specific pesticide, or get cross-pollinated because, like, pumpkins, for example, cucumbers, they have to have two different types of flower, and they pollinate each other. But if you don't have those two different like, there's a female and male flower, and if they don't pollinate each other, then they won't grow pumpkins.
Okay.
Or cucumbers or whatever.
Yeah.
Gourd fruits. So, where the cross-pollination comes in, it could spread GMOs further than expected, and that could affect our growing in the future. Because, honestly, beef, it's got to go.
It is. To grow a cow, to raise a cow, is just... It's more... You're taking more resources than you're truly getting.
Yeah.
Like,
it's not efficient.
And it's just...
But with crickets, for example, it is...
super efficient.
Way more efficient.
You can make a lot of crickets really quickly.
Really fast. For a tenth the water, like a third the energy.
If that, like...
And you get way more out of it.
I mean, sure, it's cricket meat, but again, that's our own stigma.
It's stigma. And like, seriously.
Yeah. I know, like I said before, if Monsanto's stuff got on your product, they could claim your crop because they have the right to, like, special seeds or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, they have copyright claims on this kind of stuff.
On this product,
I completely disagree. I don't think you should be able to, like, copyright a life. You can't take a seed and say, this is mine, I'm gonna patent it. In my opinion, I don't think you should be able to.
I disagree with you, because that is a product that you created. Claiming other people's crops because you sprinkled your seed on them is not okay. Like...
Yeah.
Because you can't claim someone's crop if you intervened with their stuff.
That is your problem.
That's like me spitting on your phone and saying it's mine because it has my spit on it.
Exactly. I completely disagree with that.
But I feel like you can copyright a seed, and if someone looks at your, say, genetic alignment and copies it to make their own, then you have a copyright claim.
I mean, I guess if it's a specific genetic alignment, you're making a specific thing, and only in these specific parameters would that thing, where you could copyright strike someone else's seed. I guess in that respect,
But
that is fair.
having the thing where they can claim your crops just because they're pesticide drifted over, I think that's not okay.
It's like, I'll just spray it everywhere then, might as well. I'll claim the whole world. But, yeah, as long as GMOs aren't really hurting us, like, as long as they're not changing us exponentially, because, there's a lot of things that are affecting our bodies right now, like microplastics, which are everywhere. GMOs already, pesticides, hormones that are in food.
See, actually, one aspect where I do support anti-GMO is when it comes to fertilizers, because they do make high oxygen fertilizer or whatever.
Yeah.
But where that becomes a problem is because obviously the farms need water.
Yeah.
So they're sometimes near a water source, but then that carries it out to the ocean,
and
that
then
fertilizer is toxic to the natural creature of that region, but it grows algae.
Oh yeah.
And the algae then blankets
like a complete
like there's patches along North America's coast that's just like
algae.
a wave of algae, and nothing can grow beneath it because it blocks all the sunlight,
all the oxygen.
Like it sucks the life out of the water.
Yeah.
If anything, we should start eating algae, but that's gross.
So we think.
No, it's gross. I've tried.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, no, I have a fish tank.
Well,
don't worry about it. Anyways.
Yeah.
But, yeah, no. See, I see where they're coming from in that respect.
Or if it's spreading out.
It's spreading out into the ocean. And let's be honest here. The ocean is the crutch of the Earth right now.
It's 70% of the Earth.
It's also eating a lot of the carbon fumes that we have decided that we need to put into the oxygen.
Yeah.
Or into the air. And if the ocean decides to cop out, the planet says, oh, all of you are dead now.
All of the life that we need, all of the life that we have, bye-bye.
So in that respect, I feel like GMOs are hurting the environment if they
can spread
But that's the fertilizer. We wouldn't need to change the fertilizer if we changed the plant instead.
Yeah.
Because I guess changing the fertilizer isn't altering a living organism.
No. It's just...
But...
It's environment.
It's environment.
Yeah.
So it's, do you want to change environment or do you want to change an organism?
Yeah.
Personally, I'm going to change the organism. Because...
If you can get...
The organism, like, for example, I know they're trying to make soybean that consumes less water, so that it's better to, like, obviously less water is better.
Yeah, in every case.
Every situation. Using less fresh water is...
Using less good. Resources in general
is good.
Is always good.
So they're trying to make soybean and no, it wasn't barley, it was corn. Soybean and corn that use, like, a whole bunch less water.
Okay.
To grow. Which is great.
Amazing.
They're changing the plant
and not
the fertilizer.
Yeah, if we could change, I think another benefit of changing a plant in comparison to the fertilizer is, if this plant doesn't need a specific area to grow in, maybe not a specific fertilizer to be able to bloom to its full potential, we could send it off to different places that, need, like, say, some parts of Africa, they don't have a lot of water accessible. Yeah. And these plants would be able to grow using a lot less water, which is just a benefit for them.
Benefit, 100%.
And we don't need to use a special fertilizer.
Exactly. And
like that.
Especially in situations like that, their main water source sometimes gets contaminated because they're using it for so much.
Yeah.
And if they use less water, that stays fresher longer,
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Going back to, like, animals eating the GMO produce.
Yeah.
I feel like if a cow's getting fed some corn, I don't really care what, wheat, grass, they're getting fed feed, and it's made with GMO products that are cow safe or whatever safe, they would have to be safe for human consumption as well, or else.
Yeah.
Because then I know, like with microplastics at least, if we were putting a whole bunch of plastic in the ocean, smaller fish are eating this little plastic, whether they want to or not.
Tasty.
Bigger fish eating those smaller fish. We're eating those big fish. We're getting it in our system. It's sort of the same deal with GMOs in a way. If they have some nasty or some human abrasive kind of GMO in or like a hormone or something like that in a plant that we're feeding to a cow and then we consume it, it may not be direct consumption from the GMO to you, but it's still you're still getting the badness into your system.
Right, but then still they would have tested stuff like that,
Yeah.
To an extent.
To an extent, but yeah, I don't know how long GMOs have been around. I mean, they've been around for a long time, I'm assuming.
Yeah. I mean, GMOs, I guess, were based off of people not wanting to use pesticides. Because pesticides are bad for you.
They're not good.
They kill weeds. They also kill humans.
They just kill living things.
They say, oh, I'm going to yeet the life out of you.
They're not good for you. Just straight up.
But I mean, in the case of pesticides... Mm-hmm. A lot of orchards didn't want to use like around here especially. We have a lot of orchards around here.
Yeah.
And a lot of orchards didn't want to use pesticides because a lot of people didn't want to eat pesticides, understandably.
Yeah.
But then this was still when GMOs were first starting to come up.
Okay.
And they used nets and just like huge nets.
Yeah.
That they would drape across their trees of cherries and apples and pears and they just lay them over and cover them so that the bugs couldn't get in. Because bugs are a big threat to orchards. Because
massive.
Fruits are tasty.
They're delicious.
And they're sugary, which attracts insects and birds and,
just attracts animals.
Because it's tasty.
Because they're delicious.
Yeah. But the nets worked just as well, if not better, than the pesticides. Because the pesticides... Some of the plants were kind of like, I'm not feeling this pesticide stuff.
They're dying from the pesticides.
Because weed killers meant to kill plants. So if you spray a weed next to a plant, the plant is also not going to want to live.
Yeah.
I know that it's more advanced now where it like targets the weed and it's
specific, yeah.
Hey, I'm going to get just the weed.
Yeah.
But, back then the nets worked just as well.
Even better, yeah.
But now that there's, GMO, people are against it. But now, we don't need pesticides because we have GMO.
Which is good. Exactly.
Pesticides were bad. GMOs are just changing what it is. Doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. It's just changing it.
Yeah. I mean, if we can get like an apple to grow twice its size using maybe less water or the same amount of water.
That's double the food for the same amount of water.
Exactly. And
I mean, except for kids who just eat the outside and then leave it.
What about... Talked about genetically modifying things, maybe not necessarily GMOs. What about, like, people? This is a little slightly different. Very different, but what if you're GMOing life? We're maybe... Oh, not GMOing. We're genetically modifying life. Do you think that is...
I feel like human intervention in modifying an organism is just speeding up the natural course of things. Like, for example, if we relate back to plants for a minute.
Okay.
Like, let's take how plants, they're immune to, like, a disease or whatever.
Yeah.
They're immune to that disease sometimes because they've grown for a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
Obviously, the plant is living, so it adapts to its environment.
Of course.
Like corn.
Yeah.
Corn spread like a weed. It used to be no bigger than your pinky finger, every cob. Then humans started cultivating it, and it became bigger and bigger and bigger. And now it's immune to also a bunch of diseases.
And it's
naturally
better for it. I mean, you can eat it. It doesn't taste like crap.
Exactly. So I feel like human intervention is just, say we make it immune to this disease, this disease, this disease. it would have gotten that eventually anyways.
So it's not.
It's not really. You're just.
We're pushing it in the good direction.
Yeah, we're not necessarily modifying. I'd say we're more accelerating. You know?
Yeah.
We're accelerating nature. Some people think that's a bad thing. You know, don't tamper with nature. But, I mean, what are you gonna?
You've sort of been doing that all.
Are you gonna let billions of people starve because you decided
you don't want to mess with
that
nature?
You don't want to make a food grow faster?
Which is fair.
You know?
Like, I mean, I guess we have been modifying nature for a long time. Like, again, you used corn as an example. I know watermelon. If you look up a picture of a watermelon back in the day, you know, a few hundred years ago.
Yeah. It was mostly white.
It did not look good. No. It was super inedible. And I'm pretty sure it was, like, it made you sick if you ate that, because it just wasn't made for eating.
It's like Britney Spears toxic.
And then we just kept cultivating it and making it better, we selective breeding, which is, I feel like selective breeding is almost genetically modifying things.
It is,
at its core.
You look at dogs, and we selective bred them.
Like pugs.
Yeah. They are not natural.
They don't breathe well because we made them not breathe well.
Like bulldogs.
Yeah.
Their tails become ingrown. And, you know, I guess that's a point for the other side. You know, where it's like GMOs can be bad. Modifying things the way we see fit can have negative consequences.
Yeah, it could.
But when bulldogs were created, it was still new.
Yeah.
So the new stuff, you know, the old stuff, don't get me wrong, it's probably not great. The old stuff in our scenario with food is pesticides. We know
they're bad
for a fact they are bad to consume.
They don't taste great.
Don't do it.
Just don't eat pesticide. If you can, don't.
Or like, yeah, you know, you get an apple, you wash it off first.
Yeah.
Because you know damn well there's pesticides on it. You don't want to eat that.
Or like wax or whatever.
Yeah, well, apples have natural wax.
Yeah.
But pears, for example.
Regardless of the fruit.
Cherries are bad for pesticides.
Oh, I bet.
Like,
I mean, cherries get maggots real easy.
And they're really sweet.
Yeah.
So anyways, it's,
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, in a way, we are speeding up the process using genetically modified. But again, we are selectively speeding up certain aspects of fruit or vegetables, which is
fruit, vegetables.
Again, it's not a problem as long as it's not hurting us in the outcome. You know, because if
I feel, you know, honestly, I feel like we're accelerating grain a little bit more than we should. Like, rice, that's okay, because rice.
I love rice. I'm not gonna.
Don't get me wrong. I love rice. I love bread. I love
food. I just love food. Food's great.
Food is delicious. It is but fantastic. Things like wheat, we know for a fact it's making us fat. The excessive gluten content that instantly turns into sugar in our bodies, it's
not good for you.
There's a reason why America is one of the fattest countries. They're also one of the biggest producers of wheat.
Wheat. Yeah.
Yeah.
And other things. But
but like,
wheat.
So I feel like we're concentrating a little bit too much on grain and not enough on vegetables.
Yeah, and proper.
Yeah, because like soybean, I think we should concentrate more on.
There's
more so than wheat. Rice, more so than barley. I mean, barley's small as it is, but barley makes, what is it, beer? Whiskey?
Beer? It makes alcohol.
Alcohol.
It makes alcohol.
It makes drinky. But yeah, it's so I feel like we need to concentrate more on like rice and
vegetables.
Soy, because soy is another good one. It consumes a lot less water than wheat and corn.
Okay.
And it's also very prevalent in the movement to eat less meat, because you can make soy do some funky things.
You can make a lot of foods taste like a lot of other foods. If you just...
That was very general of you.
I know, right?
Good sir.
Well, I mean, we got the Beyond Burgers at A&W and...
Yeah, there's Beyond Burgers. There's a Beyond Burger at Tim Hortons.
Yeah,
Personally,
good
I've
or
never
not,
had them.
that's a question for your own sake. But
at the same time, it's like, if soy is becoming big like this, why can't crickets? For example, because we mentioned that earlier. Like,
I mean,
it's just the stigma.
I'd be if somebody gave me a burger, right, and I ate it,
and it tasted good,
and they didn't tell me the meat was crickets. Honestly, I'd be fine with that. I mean, of course, I just think I'd be eating a burger. But if they told me it was crickets, of course I'm going to be sort of
sketchy at first. Like,
depending on how I want to see how the process of making the cricket meat. Maybe I don't actually. But I mean, again, if we can use less resources to make something of the similar, if not better, outcome.
Honestly, I think at the end of the line, I'm going to go with GMOs are good, and we need to put... It's not necessarily that they're perfect. I feel like we need to put more research into them.
Definitely.
Because, I mean, without research, they can be bad because we don't make them better.
And awareness, too, because then companies...
Yeah, no, there's a lot that goes on behind shut doors.
That we just
don't know.
I mean...
So I feel like it should be a more open process, but there's a lot of things that should be more open of a process.
I feel like food in general should just have... It should tell you what's in it. I mean, it does to an extent.
It's like cigarettes.
Right.
Cigarettes, there's a law in Canada now where they have to show you those gross, disgusting pictures of someone with an ash mouth.
On the back of or on the front of the box.
Yeah.
And saying this
will cause this.
Yeah.
You can't say we didn't warn you. Now, I'm not saying we need to go and put a black heart up there because, you got heart disease from eating too much bacon.
Yeah.
I don't want to see that when I'm shopping for bacon.
But
I don't.
Yeah, ignorance is bliss in those cases.
But at the same time,
I want to know.
You got to tell people. You got to put the information out there, and it is out there, kinda.
You just gotta. It's out there. You just gotta look for it. And that's the problem. You gotta look hard, and it's not just obviously in your face.
Yeah.
Again, I agree with you. I think GMOs, for the most part, are just good. I mean, we're taking a product, we're changing it, we're exploiting it for its benefits to us, and I don't see a problem with that.
Yeah. If we use the fertilizer scenario that I was talking about, I can see it being bad. But the more that we research it, like I was saying, the less we have to use pesticides, we have to use fertilizers, and
just the resources and whatnot. Yeah.
Thank you for listening to The Gray Area.
Feel free to share your thoughts and input with us in the comments below.
When the answer isn't black or white,
It's the gray area.